So I used to be a rebellionaire. No, I'm kidding. I used to have a lot more Tesla value in my Tesla holdings than I do
Mhm.
now. Mr. Bradford Ferguson, the founder of Rebellionaire, what do you have to say to me? I'm calling you up. I'm your client. Ah,
What happened to my Tesla stock?
having my Tesla stock.
Yeah. So, yeah, most of our clients who are rebellionaires who are like all in Tesla or effectively all in or whatever, they understand what's going on. I think there's some concerns about brand damage. Our diversified clients, they're uncomfortable. I think in general, change makes people uncomfortable. How politically active Elon's been has made some people uncomfortable, especially like if they didn't vote for Donald Trump.
Right.
So I, I I think otherwise, yeah, that's my take on the mood amongst investors.
So it's been very volatile,
Mhm.
up and down. Of course, the market has been pretty volatile as well. Some other stocks have been extremely volatile. Nvidia, Microsoft, I mean, not Microsoft, Meta,
Mhm.
some of the, you can go down the list of stocks that have been shockingly volatile during this period. So are we going to be seeing, I mean, CERN Basher will be the guy that would tell you, that Tesla's always been volatile. This is nothing new, and it's not going to go away. Would that be the underlying principle?
Yeah, unless the board and Elon got behind doing a stock buyback,
Oh, wow.
um, I think it would make great sense for Tesla to do a buyback. And it's not for me.
Yeah,
It's for Tesla because I think the stock um, should be a pretty easy double over the next year or two from where it is, or
right.
like if it got down to 220 or 200 or 180 again. If Tesla did a buyback the last 2 years, if they bought in late December of 22
Yeah,
and sold in the summer of 23, they would have easily doubled their money. So 100% return
yeah.
in about a year's time. If they bought near the low, before the vote,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
180 or lower, stock got much lower, got the 140. They could have easily doubled their money, selling in the fall.
Sure.
Um, so if the Tesla finance side, if they bought when the stock was low, they could chop off some of that volatility on the downside.
Hmm.
And if they trim when it was high, then they could kind of squash it a little bit. So they could make it a little less volatile over time that way and make some money doing it.
So when you posted about that the other day, my first thought was, I've only really paid attention to about, I don't know, seven stocks in my
Mhm.
whole, in 55 years or more of watching the stock market. I've really only paid attention to a handful of stocks. Because I've always had a belief that I wanted to know the stock backwards, forwards, inside out if I was going to invest in it.
Mhm.
Is this normal for companies? I understand it's normal to buy back. Apple is a perfect example to buy back their shares, but is it normal for companies to play their own stock?
It's not normal for a company to turn around and sell their stock.
That's my point. Yes.
Yeah, it is normal to do buybacks.
Yes.
It's also not normal for companies to be choosy about when they do the buyback.
Yeah.
So most will either do it right away, like when it's authorized,
Yes.
or what they'll do is they'll do a schedule throughout the year and buy like once a month or something
Right.
like that.
Right. Right.
And um, so for a company to say, okay, let's wait until there's some drama. There's always drama with Tesla. Let's wait for there to be some drama, some pessimism, and some people just throwing in the towel. That's when we want to be buying back our stock. And if Tesla were to do like 10 billion at a time, they could have they could have made 10 billion those
Right,
prior years,
right, right.
but also, I think they could literally add 10 billion before tax doing this.
Interesting, interesting. So,
And like if bulls are saying, "Oh, I bought the dip, but I don't want Tesla to."
right, right. Now, would they?
I'm allowed to, but not Tesla.
But what about the market reaction to Tesla selling at the high? Wouldn't people say, "Oh, they don't believe in their own stock"?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't say they're doing it before they do it.
Oh,
They would do it and then it would come out like a few days later or something like that.
right, right, right. Okay, all right. Well, there's no there. There's I've never heard of this before, but I'm sure
I
that
mean, why not? Like you could
yeah,
have done so well
there
doing
must
it.
have been somebody that's done that before.
It would remove volatility in
Yeah,
Tesla stock as well, or it would potentially reduce, not
right.
remove, but reduce.
Anyway, so do you think we're looking at choppy road here for a while? I've made myself very clear what I think is going to happen. I think we're choppy until we get the tariff thing behind us. And once we get the tariff thing behind us and the first quarter behind the possible bad news of the first quarter, whichever way it goes, we get it behind us, then I think the stock is off to the races. By the end of May, we'll be back to all-time highs. And then by the end of the year, 700 plus plus.
Yeah, so we're not sure the market is done going down.
Okay.
Um, we, I said this last week. I thought it might bounce this week and then, but ultimately go lower. So we're in the camp that it could ultimately go lower.
To a
And
full on bear?
bear market for the Nasdaq, yeah,
Oh, so 20% for the Nasdaq, that would probably end up being about 13% maybe for the S&P.
yeah.
Okay.
So because that's not totally done yet, um, I think Tesla could continue to get beat up
Okay.
until the overall market has bottomed, especially with this coming news about their low production this quarter and low deliveries, which
Okay.
we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. And so, but then things turn around, and I know you've already, speculated about the year end. You also believe that we'll be at significantly higher numbers by the end of the year, right?
Yeah, with both earnings and with where the share price is.
Right, right, right. Okay. All right. Well, so talk to me.
So this and why I say with earnings, and I'm not the financial analysis guy that Matt Smith is, not so that's why he's also on my team.
Right.
You think about the Model Y right now, Tesla will be lucky if they make money on the Model Y this quarter.
Sure.
But the Model Y is their most profitable model,
Right.
and it's close to two-thirds of their uh, vehicle sales as far as by unit number. So that's really meaningful. And so you're going to see that profit come off this quarter. And it'll hurt the year, but you'll get to Model Y being, greatly profitable by the end of this year.
Right. Right. So the ones that are going out, have they started selling? So I didn't pay attention. Have they started selling something other than the launch edition?
Not yet in the US, but
So,
they started to offer it in Europe and China.
okay. And how long what do you think the wait time is right now on launch edition in the US?
In the US, it's pretty low. So you can order one today and you might be able to get it in 3 weeks.
3 weeks. So that would take us to the end of March, though. So technically, every single car that goes out in March is going to have $8,000 of free profit in it. So that could help that margin.
Yeah, I estimate it to be 4,000 of extra profit, but the and I'm talking beyond the FSD package that comes with it. But yeah, they'll get the 8,000. It's kind of embedded in that price for
Right,
FSD. They'll
right.
also get the 4,000. That's extra for the launch edition premium.
Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah, so that could mean that it's profitable in the first quarter.
I don't I don't think it'll be enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. All right. Well,
It
it'll
it
be
definitely helps.
yeah, oh yeah, it helps a
Remember
lot.
how long it took for the Cybertruck to become profitable? It wasn't even in the second quarter of
Right.
last year
So
that it was.
that was a complete build from the ground up, and the numbers may not have been as big. But anyway, I'm with you. I get it. Yeah. I can see what you're talking about.
You're right, they didn't reach as much scale with the
Yeah.
Cybertruck, so that's a good point.
Mhm. All right. Okay. So since we're on the Model Y, there was a lot of talk this morning that a Mexican version of the Model Y might be coming to China. That caused Troy Teslike to he didn't actually use little clappy emojis, but he seemed like he was thrilled because I think he's been poo-pooing the idea that there was going to be a Model Q, and now he's thrilled that maybe he's right and that
Uh,
the so-called Model Q would be just a Mexican version of the, and I'm not meaning that in a disparaging way. It's just that we have a version in Mexico which is cheaper. So
yeah,
do
it
you
does have cloth seats, the
bought
one in
seats and
Mexico.
other things that reduce the cost. So is there are you thinking now because of this announcement
Excitement.
the announcement in China, do you think that actually there isn't a Model Q, or do you still think we're going to get a completely different model that will be coming out soon?
It was a news article in China, right?
Yeah. Well, it was apparently well researched. What's happened, the way I understood it, okay,
Okay.
was that the employees in China felt that they might need a lower price version in China in order to deal with the competition, but they weren't sure yet because they didn't have enough knowledge in terms
Hmm.
of how the sales are going. But they were talking
Yeah.
about what to
Okay.
do. They're talking about what to do if, okay.
Okay.
So they came
All
up with
right.
a
If
version.
if that's the basis of the article, then that doesn't make the cheaper Model 3 or Y more probable. I think that's just kind of employees thinking, oh, you look at all the cheaper cars in China and you think, oh, Tesla has to lower their prices eventually. And they were selling at certain points last year, they were selling all their production into
Right,
China.
right.
And China was taking it all at those the Tesla prices. Now,
Yeah.
I think it's a little cheaper in China, but not by much.
Mhm, mhm. So we had, I'm calling it the greatest PR event in the history of mankind, topping Barnum and Bailey, topping everybody that you can think of. You just don't get better PR than having the President of the United States in front of the White House pick out his new car amongst the fleet that had been brought for him to choose amongst. So you had some thoughts with regard to this PR event.
Well, I thought it was great, and I I I hope that there's continued attention from these big voices in the future for Tesla. So if it just happens once, I think it'll provide a nice bump for Tesla. I think it'll help, but I think for long-term demand, I think people need to see more of it. They need to see these people in their Teslas or talking more about how they're just surprised by how great a product it is.
Okay.
And I don't think we'll get into that because people on here know how good the Tesla is, but I'll just give the real quick five categories. Safety, technology, those were the two biggest for me to get into a Tesla. The fun, the convenience, and um, the overall cost.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I think those are all biggies. And, I have a lot of conservative friends, a lot of people that I know that are very conservative who have been against Tesla,
Hmm.
against Elon Musk, who don't even want to talk about how great the stuff. You get in a conversation and they glaze over. They're not interested in having the conversation because they see him, they remember him as a liberal, they remember him as a greenie, or they see him as a greenie. He's not really actually a much of a greenie, but he that's the perception they have, and they have the perception that they're being forced to buy an electric car someday.
Yeah.
So that made them put up their clause and say, "You're not going to force me out of my car. You're over my dead body." So
Uh,
I'm not trying to make fun of my friends, but that's just the truth. That's how they've
yeah.
seen it. And no matter what I said, it didn't change their mind. It didn't matter
Mm.
how cool the car was. It didn't matter. They were, you know, adamant that they were never going to do it. Okay, but now you've got the president of the United States. You've got half the people at Fox News. You've got Joe Rogan. You go down the list of all the podcasters that already own Teslas or who have talked about them in the past, which
And also influencers on X that
yes,
are right leaning. Yeah.
yes. And so now you've got kind of a chorus, which I would think, and I haven't talked to any of these conservative friends yet to find out, but you would think it would at least open the so-called open the door. It would at least cause them to think again. It may not cause them to do anything, but at least to think again. Maybe I should at least take a look.
Yeah. I, I think it's definitely very impactful what happened. It is a big deal. Uh, I do think it'll trigger some curiosity and those who are more open-minded just kind of allow themselves to change their minds. Then I think there's a chance. Um, Now, one thing I would say is not all the people are in the car market each year.
Right,
I don't know if it's like once every 7 years or every 10 years, but that market is limited. Um, so I think there's a definite benefit here. Um, and as far as percentages, like the percentage of Republicans that would consider a Tesla now is much higher than the Democrats, but also like higher than it's ever been,
right,
and higher than the Democrats' percentage has been in a long time.
right.
It's pretty wild. Now, I think there's one narrative that will really struggle this quarter, and that's the whole narrative around the Model Y changeover. Tesla, they have to decrease their production
Yeah,
to switch over each line, and you have all these new processes to improve the Model Y.
right.
So the machinery has to change some. People need to get trained, needs to be high quality. I'm not Jeff Lutz, but production's coming way down,
Yes,
and
yeah,
their sales are going to come way down because of that.
right,
But what the media was going to do even before today was blame it on Musk being involved in
right,
politics
right.
and blame it on some kind of boycott.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Now, um, we know it's not true because production came down and Tesla didn't have the Model Ys to sell. Now, the Trump thing also hurts a little bit with perception. And I'm not talking in the way you might think. It's now the narrative can become, despite Trump and all these conservative voices endorsing Tesla, it didn't help. Their sales still dropped like a rock.
there has already been one head.
Not even with all that support could Tesla be saved.
There's already been one headline like that. I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not going to be the first one. I hope they didn't get it from me. So I apologize if I tweeted that, but it we're going to hear it a lot.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, interestingly, this is really a shocking one. Tesla announced today that they're increasing production in Berlin.
Not quite. So the media was getting on them. They're like, "Oh, your sales are
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Are you go are you going to slow down production? Or are you going to lay off some workers?
Yeah.
And Tesla said, no, we're ramping the Model Y, and we might actually need more workers. We might need more hours. Um, so it's mainly due to the Model Y. So they want to make sure the line's fully staffed, and they maybe even have extra people while everything gets real smooth. Because I would think you want to overlap shifts more. I don't know how they do that with the hours, but you want to share the work a little more while things are ramping, just so the quality is really high.
Right, right. Yeah, I would think, just like in the US, you don't have nearly as many people who are right-leaning or who are independent, but you have a lot of people that are left-leaning who are not going to make their car decision based on their politics.
Right.
So you have that as well. And so what you've got right now is a very large population of people that are driving Model Ys, very happy with their Model Ys in Europe, who may be looking to go to the new one, to move up to the better quality in the new one. So it could be interesting. That would really blow minds if they were able to start beating numbers in Europe from last year. That would
Mhm.
that would, I think, have its own momentum.
Well, one big way they could beat their numbers would be to utilize the second line that they have there.
Right.
So they have two car lines, and they're mainly using one. So their production is limited to like 300,000 a year,
Right. Right.
if they're running full out. So if they got the second line going, they could get to like a 600,000 run rate
Yeah.
just from that.
So you've become famous again. You're always coming up with these like little unique things that you do to provide help to the community. And lately, that has been doing overdubs of Chinese FSD videos.
Mhm.
I think you put up a new one either yesterday or today. I didn't watch more than a minute of it, but help us out. Tell us what was on that one. Have you learned in the week since I've talked to you about the Chinese view of FSD?
So the one we did this morning ended up being someone who, the person who was doing the driving, they admitted to being paid by the other car manufacturers. So he was a bit biased going in. Um,
They
and
they paid him to do the video?
no, they didn't pay him to do the Tesla negative one, but they had paid him to do other
Okay. All
videos.
right. Okay. Okay.
And if you go to tinyurl.com, it's and then slash FSD China,
Uh-huh.
then that takes you to, and I'll double check that. That takes you to our YouTube playlist, where we have five of the videos.
Okay.
And so the Tesla in the video with this biased influencer, it did make some mistakes. So there was a point where it didn't identify the bus lane, but
Okay.
it didn't go in it either.
Ah, that's good.
There were a couple times where it went into bike lane right before a right turn.
Hmm.
So in China, uh, especially if it's painted a certain way, you're not supposed to use it at all, even if you're making a right turn.
Okay.
You're supposed to go right, around it
Oh, yeah.
that way.
Yeah, I get
I
it.
got to do it backwards. Um, so, and there was like some lane changes, and I don't think he was used to a self-driving software that was as performant. And so I don't think he was expecting it to change lanes as quickly in certain circumstances. So he's kind of like, oh, but like that was the best he could come up with.
Okay.
So, to me, that says Tesla is very far along. I
And
really haven't seen any safety related stuff in
nice,
China.
nice.
That's important. Also, haven't really seen like super hard braking where it's just, suddenly braking all the way to zero. So no phantom braking. Um, they're getting they're getting very close. I'm curious how the navigation is as well.
Yeah. So speaking of navigation, Baidu was reported today to have upped their relationship with Tesla. I mean, according to Brian Wong, who is really zeroed in on the Baidu situation,
Mhm.
they've had, quite a relationship now for, I want to say, over a year, where Baidu and Tesla, but where Baidu actually is fielding some Tesla vehicles out there doing some testing. I want to say it's less than a dozen, but something on that order. And now they're apparently moving up to another level where they're helping with mapping, and some other software issues. So, what's your take on that?
I think it's really good. I had heard about Baidu being involved with maps before, and I think was a bit of a product of Elon Musk's last visit to China.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I think it'd be positive if but that they're working together. Though, Tesla doesn't necessarily work well with others. Uh, I think they work well with their suppliers and all that, but so we'll see where it goes from here. But I think it's a positive, and I also it just reminds me eventually Tesla needs to get into maps.
oh, yeah,
Like you can see the road with the cameras, and you can report on, where it's closed and when it's closed, or if there's an accident, and have the actual camera footage of it, so you
yeah,
can really mark it well on a map.
yeah. It would seem like that would be a no-brainer, but maybe they just have too many other things on the plate right now.
Yeah.
So the inflation numbers came in this morning better than expected, way better than expected. And after yesterday, CPI coming in way better than expected. It took the bonds a little while. They went up, the yields went up yesterday and up today. And I'm like, what is going on? So finally, in the last time I checked anyway, they had come back down a little bit. We're closer to the 4.25 mark, which is my kind of, I feel like that's a very difficult place for it to pop through. But it had been down to like, oh, it was looking like it was going to go to 4, and then it just went all the way back up to like 4.33. So, A, what do you think the impact is of the inflation numbers? B, what about the bonds? And then finally, is the Fed going to cut next week?
I don't think they'll cut. I think Jay Powell is still in tenured professor mode where you can't get rid of me. I have tenure. I'm gonna be the way I want to be. So I don't think they'll lower rates yet. They'll be late to it. Uh, I think it's a positive that inflation's coming down. Um, and we see it, home prices in DC have come way down.
Yeah, yeah, they have.
I wouldn't want to be owning property in DC.
No. Or Virginia.
Egg prices have come back down to inauguration day levels, and
Yeah.
so there's been some other positives. Now, if we do get tariffs, that could cause some problems with prices. I guess, there's some nerds out there that say tariffs aren't inflation, but they cause people to pay higher prices,
Sometimes this is the problem.
which
So
sounds like inflation, but if it's
sounds
limited
like
to
inflation. And sometimes
certain areas, then it's not.
yeah, and it could be price increases, but sometimes it won't be price increases. So there's so many different ways that it doesn't end up being price increases. The initiating country, let's say it's Canada.
Okay.
So Canada says, okay, you're going to put a tariff of 25%. Well, first of all, we're going to give that company some subsidies so that they can afford to sell it for cheaper. And then they decrease the value of their currency, and that allows a change in
Mhm.
the value comparatively. And then the company itself says, well, we'll cut our margins a little bit. And then the company looks around and sees if they can find other ways to squeeze out a few cents. And then maybe
Mhm.
their customer in the United States, the what do you want to call it, the importer, The importer might go, well, I don't want to change horses right now. I'm really happy with this relationship. So I'll cut my margins a little bit too, in order to keep this going. And so maybe it ends up, instead of 25% increase at retail, maybe it ends up being a 5% increase at retail, which is still money.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's no increase at retail. If it starts out at 5%, maybe it doesn't impact retail at all. So I've been through this so many times, I can't begin to tell you, because I've been an import export my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So it may or may not impact retail at all. The opposite side can happen too. So for instance, if there's a 25% impact, 25% duty on steel and aluminum, well, unless there's nothing else you can do, you're not going to buy from that guy.
Yeah.
You're either going to buy something else, or you're going to buy from somebody else where you don't have to pay that tariff. So you may buy domestically, you might buy from a different country that doesn't have the tariff, or you might switch from that aluminum to plastic or to something else that can fill the bill for the aluminum. So there's so many different ways that so this is why you have to have a balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
This is why Trump, and I'm sure he's doing this, and we just don't see it, but I know he's smart enough to be doing this. If you want to have income for the country from the tariff, then it has to be at a price point which allows it to still be imported. So you can
That's true. That's true. If you want tariffs for revenue, for income, the good needs to come over the border and people be willing to pay that price. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I do want to mention that there's this whole propaganda around these dairy tariffs.
Okay.
So they're a quota tariff, which
Okay.
means if the quota is exceeded,
Oh.
then it's a 280% tariff.
In other words, you aren't going to be able to get any in the country if you exceed the quota.
Yeah, so before you hit the quota, it's 0%.
Okay. All right.
So people say,
Yeah.
apologists for
Yeah.
this tariff will say, oh, it's a quota tariff
Yeah.
and it's at 0%.
Yeah.
But if you make dairy, you think about a shipment of dairy, like it's different than just shipping shoes over or maple syrup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dairy can spoil easily. All right, so you get your big shipment of dairy and you send it over and you find out that you exceeded the quota and it's unsellable.
That's all. Yes.
Like no one's going to pay 4 times the amount of money
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
so it's unsellable and you can't bring it back.
Right.
So you lost that whole shipment.
Well, no, you don't lose it. So let's say you were at you're a buck a pound, and now it would be $1.25 a pound. Well, you find somebody that'll buy it for 40 cents a pound, and you'll pay, and it's 25% tariff on 40 cents is whatever that is, or 60 cents. You find a price. I've been through this kind of stuff so often. I used to be
I guess that's true. So you would sell it for pennies on a dollar.
would sell it for less. Yeah.
Instead of taking 0, but still like it would be terrible.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't be good.
So
But
the effective tariff isn't 0.
yeah,
It's 280. And like, how do you plan? You
don't.
basically you plan the plan is I don't sell to Canada. I don't sell dairy to Canada because I cannot be hit with that
Right.
280% tariff.
I'm going to guess that there's a way to make sure that you don't make that mistake, but I can tell you that I used to be on the phone. I used to be on the automatic dial for
Mhm.
multiple salespeople who knew about a stranded rail car of,
Mhm.
polyurethane or polyethylene
Uh-huh.
that was available at a good price because somebody went broke and couldn't take it. So this is not something that this happens all the time. This is not just because of tariffs. There's
Mhm.
plenty of I even used to be not in the business of, but related to somebody who was in the business of picking up things for these the 99-cent stores. A lot
Mhm.
of times those 99-cent stores is because somebody canceled their toilet paper order. And so you can buy that entire rail car or maybe two or three rail cars for a really good price. So anyway,
Mhm.
that's all those kind of things happen all the time. Also, it does, as we just talked about, it doesn't have to be tariffs. It can be a change in the value of the money. I've been stuck in that situation.
Yeah.
I've
Mhm.
been, product on the ocean on the way,
Oh, okay.
paid for
Yeah.
yet.
Hmm.
And there's a change in the cost of money. So then a lot of times you start dealing with that customer in dollar denomination so that you don't get stuck next time. And then that guy goes, no, I want to deal in German denomination because I don't want to get stuck. So now you
Uh,
have battle.
I'm glad I'm not in negotiations.
Well, think about the containers. Last couple of years, the container prices going up and down because of the Houthis or because of COVID. And so
Hmm.
your container was costing, a 40-foot container, which normally would cost you, $4,000 or maybe even less, maybe $3,000. And all of a sudden it's costing $18,000.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yep. So these things happen all the time. Okay. So inflation numbers, the good news about inflation numbers coming down, of course, is it should encourage more business. Interest rates coming down should encourage more business. What do you think? Do you think we're gonna lots and lots of articles now about the coming recession, which Randy
Hmm.
started talking about 6 weeks ago when nobody was talking about recession. You think we actually go into a recession, or do you think we skirt it?
I don't know. I'm not sure at this point.
Okay.
I think the Atlanta Fed numbers, like they're predicting a recession that essentially, I don't know if it's, I think it's real GDP, that essentially real GDP would be minus
Inflation.
like 2.5%. Um, I don't think it'll be that bad this quarter. Um, I haven't really heard of people purposely pulling in their pocketbooks and not spending as much
Mhm,
this
mhm.
quarter. I haven't really heard people talking about that.
There's little indications. So you had last week, you had the 9% drop, or zero point 0.9, I guess 0.9% drop in spending. No, it was 9% drop in spending on the, which one was that? Which report was that? I forget. But anyway, then Bank of America came out with a report, I think yesterday,
Hmm.
said that the credit card the numbers on the credit cards were down a bit, not a ton,
Hmm.
but they weren't up, they were down. So there is some evidence of people pulling it a bit.
Okay.
Yep. And what you would expect, of course, is if you've got a government job, unless you've already unless you've already zeroed in on your next job, or unless you were working two jobs already because you didn't have to do anything because you were doing it from home, uh,
Hmm.
then you're thinking about not spending quite as much right now.
Yep. And when I think about inflation, I also think about wages.
Yeah.
So before we go, I do want to also mention that position I'm hiring for.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, do it.
Yeah, so we're hiring for a data engineer, and it's going to be someone who works with programming and data. So we have different data that we work with, client data, market data, other forms of data like stuff around marketing, and meetings, things like that, and want to wrangle all that data. So that's what a data engineer does. Is it data or data?
You say data, I say data. I think it's data, but okay.
All right. I wasn't expecting you dance for me. So, and also working with AI to just help really speed that process, help speed the design, the programming, and also the automation around the data.
Okay.
So hiring for that, yeah, I think overall. I think it's I'm pretty confident that inflation will fall down. Um, I wonder what's going to happen with autos if tariffs actually did go into place with Mexico and against the auto industry. Um,
Okay, let's stop. Let's stop. Let's be real. Let's be
okay.
real. Come on. I think there's no reality out there. Trump is not going to kill the auto industry. He's
Okay.
not going to do it, right?
All right.
The,
You
the
promising?
UAW, the UAW helped put him in office. The Ford and General Motors and
Mm.
whatnot. This is an important part. This is a strategic requirement for the United States, which is one of the reasons why he's doing it. I was just listening to, I'm forgetting his name now, the new Secretary of Commerce or whatever, Hesketh or anyway,
Exit. Yeah.
he was talking about, and and he made it so clear. Every one of the things that Trump cares about right now are the strategic items. That's where he's zeroing in: steel, aluminum, automobiles, etc., that are strategic items. So he's not going to kill the automobile industry by making this change in such a way
Hmm.
that they're going to have to spend billions and billions and be out of business for a few months
Yeah.
making the transition. So whatever
Oh,
happens,
so
I guess so.
maybe they have to look serious though to Mexico and Canada. That's the rub.
Yes,
That Trump needs to look serious so that they respond however Trump wants them to respond.
yes.
Probably by dropping their tariffs, at least on the Canadian side, and showing that they're doing better patrolling the border. On the Mexican side, I'm not sure the ask beyond the border.
So
I think it's
Hesketh,
also with the cartels.
so Hex Hesketh. Anyway, he also said, and this was something that I again, I think I've already said this, or it might be in one of the videos that I've already shot with Brian Wang that haven't come up yet. But what I've noticed is that the Mexican government is the and Hesketh agreed with this concept. The Mexicans have not been fighting Trump. They did the first couple of days, not since.
Hmm.
She's aligned with Trump. They are on the same path. And so I think that one is already done. I
Hmm.
think United Kingdom is aligned. They're not fighting.
Hmm.
It's Europe and Canada, China to a lesser
That's a
extent.
great point, Randy.
They're the ones that are fighting. And what's happening in Canada? They're in the middle of elections.
Yeah.
You guys are posturing for the election situation. So, but Hesketh was on his way to Canada, and so he's going to be negotiating with them over the next couple of days. So it might be interesting to see that by April 2nd,
It's interesting that he's going because he's a Secretary of Defense.
oh, not defense, I'm getting the wrong guy. Who's commerce?
Commerce would be Lutnick.
Lutnick. Yeah, this kind
Okay.
of scruffy guy with the,
Howard. Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah, he's the one. Okay, so I'm sorry, the wrong guy. So anyway, he's going up to Canada. So April 2nd, is that the day? Or the second, I think it is when they're going to go into the reciprocal thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the goal. That's the goal. You got to listen to what underlies, not you, but in general, we have to,
Hmm.
what's underlying? What is Trump really trying to do? He's trying to do a reset, a worldwide reset on trade. And the
Hmm.
worldwide reset would be just play fair. Just what you do, I do. And yeah, we
Hmm.
can have some cutouts. We don't have to 100%, but basically, let's just be fair with one another.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what happens.
Me too.
Reciprocal.
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 Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so speaking of reciprocal or something, there's talk that you're thinking of selling your Cybertruck because,
Yeah. One day I was saying I'm going to keep it forever just to troll everyone who gets offended by Cybertrucks. Then I'm like, I'm not sure. So FSD with the Cybertruck is a bit frustrating at times.
okay,
Um, and the recent thing, and people don't have this in other places, is it'll it'll wait at a roundabout, and then it might be a long time. It might be like 30 seconds, and then like somehow it gets lulled to sleep, and then it just won't go when it's like coast is clear, like totally clear. Um, so it's just frustrating at times. It's really good compared to where it was even a year ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's frustrating. So I messaged, I said, well, if Tesla doesn't make FSD great on the Cybertruck, then I might get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But then like in less than a day, I don't think I was the spark for this. Um, I don't know if it's Tesla AI or who said this, but um, or if it was the head of Tesla AI.
Mhm.
Spacing on his name right now.
Sure.
Um, but they said they're gonna definitively improve the Cybertruck, where they'll give it the ability to reverse. It still doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Um, it'll give it the ability to press the start button, and it'll go. Also just improve the controller around it. So it sounds like they're going to greatly improve the Cybertruck and FSD in about 2 weeks.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, good.
Hopefully, it's not the long 2 weeks.
You'll get to keep your Cybertruck. And then you're also taking delivery of a new toy on Monday, right?
Yeah, on Monday, getting a Model Y with the
Okay.
Quicksilver. Excited about that.
Nice, nice. We'll be waiting for your report.
Yeah, I've had a Model Y for coming up on 4 years.
Mhm.
And I got one of the first ones that was made. So it's like the VIN was not around number 2000
Oh,
for the Model Y. And the way I did that is I did like max spec almost. So I got the FSD package and
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
got the performance.
So you'd be at the beginning.
I
you would
would
be
be
the
at the
first call.
front of the line. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, that'll be really fun to get that new vehicle on Monday. Well,
Yeah.
any last words of wisdom before you give me the words?
No, let's get right to the numbers.
Thank you so much as always for coming on the show.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Bye for now. All right. Well, what about those numbers? Let's go ahead and take a look. As you may well know already, the Dow is down 1.3%. Today. The Nasdaq 1.96, almost 2% today. S&P 1.39% today. So down, down, down. But I was almost right this morning when I said Tesla would recover, maybe all the way back to green. Well, it didn't get to green, but it outperformed the Nasdaq and well, it was down 2.99 on a day when it should have been down 4. So that's a good thing, right? So Tesla ended up down $7.41, ending the day at 240.68. And it sits right now up at 241.35, up another 67 cents in the after hours. So where do we go from there? We know that the Magnificent Seven also was really knocked down today. We had Apple down 7. We had Meta down $28. I mean, that's not 7%. That's $7. So Apple was down 3%. We had Meta down 4.5%. So, it was not just Tesla, and it was across the board. Everybody down, all the Kathy Woods down, except for Square. I keep saying except for Square. I should have invested in Square. All right. And I used to, by the way. There was a time when I was interested in Square. And so what about the bonds? We were talking about those a little while ago. How did they end up? Well, a little bit, let's call it unchanged in the after hours or the pre-market. 4.278 now. So still not back even down to 4.25. We need to really, really have that go down a bunch. We have got oil up 29 on the Texas Intermediate, down 80 on Brent. That's interesting. And that would put oil at 66.84, which is pretty much where it's been. We have got natural gas down another 2.26, but still above $4. It had dropped a little below 4, sitting right now at $4.02. So we'll watch that for another few days and see which way it decides to go. Gold up another 8, 2,999.40. I do have to, I'm sorry, I got to take a minute of your time and see whether it did go over 3,000 at any time today. It looks like no, that looks like the high is 29.9930, 29.9980. So it looks like we're any second away from going back to I'm going over 3,000 for the first time in history. Of course, this would already be an all-time high at these levels. So watch for that. Silver at 34,535. So that also breaks through that 34 level that we've been talking about. Now, the all-time high for silver is about 38, but that 38 was a very special circumstance where somebody tried to control the silver market. So 34.54 is kind of a asterisk all-time high, going past 34 for the first time, other than that one special circumstance. Copper, $4.93, looking like it might go through 5, up 0.13 in the pre-market. We have got Bitcoin down 1,800, 81,000. So sticking kind of been not as volatile. I mean, 1,800 seems like volatile, but for Bitcoin, not so much. So the equities for tomorrow morning all looking good. The Dow up 145 or 0.35%, S&P up 27, which is about 0.5%, and the NASDAQ up 117 or 0.61%. So that is a pretty good bounce. Not unexpected when you have the kind of blow off that you had today, and fits into my narrative, which is we're going to be choppy, choppy, choppy all the way until these tariffs and the Ukraine war thing are both resolved. And quite frankly, it might not take until April 2nd to have all of these things become pretty darn clear. It could happen sooner, but if it takes 2 more weeks, 2.5 more weeks, I think we can all live with it. All right. Is there anything left that I need to talk to you about? Yes. Brian Wong later tonight. Oh my gosh. Fantastic show. So don't miss that one. And then yesterday, of course, we had Cern Basher on. And wait, this is Thursday. I just lied to you completely. Tonight is Cern Basher, and of course it's great. What else? What you all love Cern Basher, so what else is there to talk about? And last night was Brian Wong, and of course, amazing. So I'll put the card up on that one. Yeah, that's about all we got for you right now. I better get off before I hate going over an hour. It's been great talking to you.